We say bye-bye, Miss American Pie, and hello, Time Life, with Don McLean, today on the Music Universe podcast. Buddy, how are you?
I'm doing all right. How about you?
Well, I'm good. I just got off the phone with a legend, and I mean capital L, legend of music, Don McLean.
Yeah, I'm excited about this one. What you guys talk about?
Well, obviously he's known for Vincent, Starry Starry Night, uh, and American Pie, but he wrote a ton of stuff. The name of the song's escaping me, but one of his biggest, he had a really big hit with Elvis. He's just one of the most prolific songwriters in history. And what I love about this interview is that he says the word American Pie once, okay? I never say it. We don't talk about it. What we talked about is that he has, through Time Life, he's partnered with Time Life for to release 11 albums, 173 songs from his decades-long career, and it's available today as we are recording this. Today, Don McLean's collection is now available across all streaming platforms and this is the really unique thing, on YouTube.
Really?
Yeah, Time Life gave him a YouTube channel. They made a YouTube channel, gave him access to it. They put all the songs up there, and there's one 30-minute video, and it's a guitar lesson from Don McLean on entertaining with a guitar and getting the sound out of your guitar and the right sound that you want out of your guitar. I watched a little bit of that video. It's a 30-minute video. I haven't had time to watch all of it. So he talks about that. Plus, buddy, you couldn't be on. You were held up with another interview, so you couldn't be on to do this one.
Yeah.
But I wanted you there in spirit, so I broke from talking about this towards the middle end of it, and we talked about his involvement in the 1997 Central Park concert.
Yes. Okay.
I've never talked to him. I talked to him once before for my show. I didn't get a chance to ask him about that, and he was very open to talk about it. He got a fax from Garth that said, "I'd like you to be my guest on this show." And he said yes, he wanted to do it. So you hear the whole story. But it was a really, really cool interview.
Well, awesome.
Don McLean, welcome to the Music Universe podcast. How are you, sir?
I'm just fine. How are you today?
I'm great. And man, you have been busy during this quarantine, this isolation. You're releasing all your music through Time Life, now streaming for the very first time. Why now?
Why not? I think now this is perfect time right now. Everybody's home listening to music, but I didn't plan it that way. Believe me, I didn't cause this to happen. No, actually, I have had these albums accumulating over the years. They're albums that reverted to me from labels. So suddenly there were a lot of nice records that really weren't out there. So Time Life offered to do this, to put them all on all these platforms, and they've gone so much farther, I should say further, because they have opened up a YouTube channel, Don McLean YouTube channel. A lot of material is going to be on that, and they're going to put out a box set of all this stuff in CD format, I guess, and also release a new album of songs that I have not written, but I do that sometimes. So that's going to happen in the fall. So there's going to be a lot going on throughout the summer months and into the fall.
What do you make of that music being free, or relatively, being able to stream it, being able to upload it? The music, it used to be all about the record sales, the sale of the album. Now it's kind of just out there. What do you make of that?
Well, they're getting a handle on how to get paid, because that's one good thing about computers. They do keep on top of this stuff. And if I were to do this myself, and I am known to do things myself, I wouldn't be getting the result that I'm going to get from them because, they're a major corporation. They have all kinds of software and stuff. They're going to get paid. They want theirs, and they're going to get me mine, and it's going to work out very nicely. It all adds up all over the world. That's the thing. I already own all of my albums or control them all, and own all my publishing and all my songs. So, um, nothing can happen to any of that stuff without my permission. But, unless you have the albums out there, you can't make any money on them. You can't, and people can't hear them. I think the primary thing is I want people to hear some of these records, and I think they're going to be very happy when they do.
Oh, your music is some of the best there is, and history, it has stood the test of time for decades. What do you make of the fact that there are people out there still inspired by your kinds of songwriting, your style, your music? What do you make that it stands on its own in pop culture? Does that surprise you?
Everything surprises me. My age surprises me. I can't believe how fast my life has gone by. Whoop, there it goes. I've been very busy all my life. I've never really, although I've definitely taken time to do what I wanted to do. I've never been, frantic. One thing about show business that you'll find out is that when you have these people, managers and agents to some degree, who get a hot act, and years ago I was a hot act. They'll work you like a rented mule. I mean,
Hmm.
they work you to death. And the thing is to tour smart, so you don't end up with an alcohol problem, and you don't end up with no friends, and and you'll end up bankrupt anyway because they have ways of taking your money. So you got to be very careful. It's kind of a shark infested waters out there, and you have to learn to negotiate those. It can be done, but you have to be careful. So that was one major thing that I had to learn, how to last this long, and how to preserve my voice, preserve my health and my sanity. Because this is what killed Elvis Presley. I mean, they just worked that boy to death.
You're exactly right. You're exactly right. But now we have technology that can help you reach a
Oh
wider
yeah.
group of people through
Oh
less
yeah.
strain. And you're doing something on YouTube that is so unique. You're doing guitar lessons on that Time Life YouTube channel.
What,
That is your channel. Talk about that.
yeah. Well, I was just doing the one video. I did one video for
Hmm.
that, and then I did one video for Martin Guitars. They're going to run it on their
Hmm.
channel, and then I'm going to have on the 16th of May. That'll also be on the YouTube channel. I'm never going to do this again. Okay, I just did it once
Yeah.
because I'm getting old, and I have met so many great players in my life, whether they were flamenco players or jazz players or folk artists or rock and roll guys. And I did a lot of records with a lot of different people, spent a lot of time in the studio with them, and I picked up a whole lot of different things about how, I a grab bag of things that I use on stage. And I would venture to say that most young players do not know how to do these things. And so I wanted just once and for all to get them out there. And yeah, the primary purpose of that video is to get the notion inside the head of a player who's a singer and a guitar player, to get the voice and the guitar out of the instrument, the voice out of your body, the sound out of the guitar and into the room. That's what makes that's what makes it exciting. That's what makes it present. Uh, Otherwise, it's all inside, and it becomes dull and boring, and there are no dynamics. So that's partly what that video is about.
Well, you, sir, are one of only two people I know, and the other is Jim Stafford. I don't know if that name rings a bell to you. You are one of
Sure.
the only two people I know who are entertainers with guitars. The rest are just people who either they play a certain style, or they play in a band. You really know how to entertain with your instrument.
Well, I like to play solo. For years, I did,
Hmm.
and just sang. And there's an album called Solo, actually, on United Artists, where I recorded at Albert Hall in the 1970s, Royal Albert Hall. And but I do different things. That's the thing. I never was consistent about what I was doing, so I was always changing. The next time I did a live album, it was with an orchestra, it was strings and everything else, and a lot of other different material that I wrote that suited that, like "And I Love You So" or "You Have Lived" or songs like that. So I like to. That's the nice thing about having all these albums up on this YouTube channel and on all these streaming services is that there's a lot of variety there. There's a children's album there for kids, when children used to have childhoods, before technology took away their childhood.
Amen.
Uh, there's a Marty Robbins album of me doing Marty's songs that I'm very happy with. There's a Western album. I love Western music, so there's a variety of projects in there that I did that I had wanted to do, and I'm very glad I did those.
Hmm. Now, I actually want to backtrack for a minute and negate something you said. There was a time I was a hot act. I think you are still a hot act because I saw you in New York shortly after I interviewed you for the first time for another show. And my God, you were mobbed after that show. You had a heck of a time trying to get to your SUV to get out of that venue. I mean, all these decades on, you're still packing houses. I think this goes back to that surprising thing, but are you thinking about that big R, that retirement? I mean,
No, I intend to die on the road. That's my goal.
good.
Either in a crummy hotel or on stage somewhere, or you know at a Howard Johnson's. I don't know. I really love my work, and I have received so much love and attention, and so many distinguishing things have happened to me.
Hmm.
And I've made millions and millions of dollars doing this. And God, I just, I like nothing more than catching that plane and singing for the audience, and and getting back home again and feeling like I accomplished something for people. I like that feeling of accomplishment. I think there's one of the things that's bad about drugs. Young people, they get a feeling of accomplishment without doing anything. So it's good to learn how to you know get a project done. Make a goal for yourself. And stay away from false kinds of satisfaction, which really is just going to waste your life. They always talk about the American dream.
Hmm.
Well, the American, you don't want to be dreaming. You want to be setting goals for yourself, whatever they may be. I'm going to lose 10 pounds, or I'm going to run a mile. I'm going to learn, start lifting some weights and do it. This is the thing. You look at there's Arnold Schwarzenegger has some videos out where he talks about what to do. Sleep no more than 6 hours, and but that's how the guy got where he got. I mean, he lifted weights, he married a Kennedy, he became governor, he became a movie star. That's how you do it. And people don't realize that. You have to set goals for yourself, and when you do that, doors will open, new things will happen.
So, what are some of the goals you've set for yourself in this time where we're all staying at home, other than this wonderful Time Life project? I'm sure you're going stir
Well,
crazy.
I'm not going stir crazy. I'm
Really?
I'm enjoying it very much. I've always been a loner, so I would, in my house in Maine, it's 175 acres up in the woods.
Hmm.
It's as big as a small town, actually. So if I were there, I'd be shoveling horse manure, and fooling around in the barn. There's always things to do that don't involve you necessarily being social with lots of people, but not that there's anything wrong with that. But I love that also. That's why I like to sing for them. But I think that what I'm trying to do is like take care of myself a little bit, go to the doctor, or get this fixed, get that fixed, make sure you're in good shape,
Hmm.
little things that you avoided doing, do those things. And then, one thing like that. And then, this kind of stuff where we're getting these 11 albums up on all these streaming platforms. That's something that's been sitting there. And it's leading to more things that need to be done because now there'll be videos of television specials and so on that will be added,
Oh, cool.
to the YouTube channel, and they've got to be dealt with. So there's a lot of detail work, and the days go by.
That's good. Now I want to shift gears here for a minute. We'll come back to Time Life Project and back to you in a minute. But you took part in one of my favorite musical events, and it was my introduction to your music. It was the Central Park concert in
Oh yeah,
1997 with Garth.
right.
I just want to know how you got invited to do that, what led you to say yes, and what it was like 800, 900,000 people on that stage. Talk about that.
Well, it had nothing to do with me trying to have it happen. I'll tell
Hmm.
you, I don't really. I'll tell you, I'm a little bit Thoreauvian. Thoreau said, "I wait for people to knock on my door."
Hmm.
That's what something like that. It was him or one of those guys, and I like that. I don't really go knocking on people's doors, but I had heard that Garth Brooks, who was emerging throughout the '80s, was always talking about me and singing, American Pie. Sometimes he would sing Vincent,
Yep.
and I didn't know who the guy was, and so by the '90s, he was this, behemoth. He's this Leviathan, this huge act, and the announcement came that he was going to play, in New York City, and it's just about. I had been in the city prior to the event, doing something else, and the city just was taken over with Garthness. There were pictures everywhere, and just every street lamp had a poster on it, and it was fascinating. So all of a sudden, I go back home and I get a fax. It was the old days of faxes.
Facts.
And it said Garth wanted me to be his guest. Would I consider doing that? And so I said sure, and that's how it happened. So I went there, and it was enormous. I mean, the afternoon where we did, the setup and stuff, I decided that if I was going to be met with a bunch of jerks, who were going to be disrespectful to me, that I was going to turn around and go home.
Right.
But I met one nice person after another who knew exactly why I was there and brought me exactly where I was supposed to be, and they treated me like, um, beautifully. And I said, "Well, this comes from the top down." So he pulls up in a limousine, and he's got this huge. I mean, there's so much stuff involved. There's this enormous stage.
Hmm.
I've never seen a stage like this. It's like the size of an aircraft carrier, and these huge screens all the way out as far as you can see on both sides. And man, something's going to happen, right? So he comes in a limousine, jumps out of the car, runs over and gives me a big hug. And so that's how it all was. We talked a little bit about what we might do, and the funny thing was that uh, just about when I was supposed to go on, some light went on fire.
Yep.
And so everything kind of stopped, and people looked at this, are we going to have an explosion? What's going to go next? But they put it out, and then he said some nice things, and he introduced me. And I came out, and we had discussed, well, you sing this verse, and I'll sing that verse, and this stuff. And so what happened was I just he had launched into the first part. So I didn't waste a minute. I said, let's sing the chorus. I jumped right on the thing, sang a verse, another couple of choruses, and we were off stage. So, I mean, I didn't do anything like we rehearsed. We just did it.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that story. I know that isn't specific to your work, but it was the introduction for me to American Pie and to your incredible, incredible catalog. I'm so thrilled that it's out there now. So, to close this out, I want to say that everybody who has an interest in songwriting, an interest in music, should go listen to this YouTube, watch this YouTube. And, sir, what is your advice to aspiring songwriters, aspiring musicians?
My advice is to be completely dedicated to what you're doing. I was a person who wasn't very good. I wasn't a very good student. I
Hmm.
wasn't a very good athlete. I was a big disappointment to my father, who died when I was 15, because I was never what he wanted. What he wanted was a West Point cadet. That's what
Right.
my father wanted,
Hmm.
and what he got was a sickly, strange kid, that liked television and records, so he didn't get what he wanted. But but I what that did was that when I did discover that I really loved performing, loved playing the guitar and singing, then I locked onto that with a vengeance, because that was something that I could do that other people couldn't do. So I had something. And if you're lucky enough to find that, and if you're a singer and a songwriter, and that's what you want to do, you have to be completely devoted to that. Nothing gets in the way of that. Relationships, nothing. And you have to practice. You have to. When I was in my teens, I would practice 4 hours a day every day.
Hmm.
I wanted to be able to play guitar, and I played the 5-string banjo too, and make it look like it was absolutely effortless. I didn't have to think about it. All right. And, so there's a lot of practice you have to do, and learn how to sing. Singing is a whole separate thing. You just don't sing, like any old way you want to. You have to get control over your voice and the tone and all the rest of it. Sing in tune and whatnot. And the songwriting, you have to have a lot of songs in your head to know where not to go. You don't want to be accidentally stealing Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, when you're writing something, because you've heard it all your life. Well, you're going to get sued. So there's a lot to it, but it requires dedication, and I would venture to say that anybody who does what I do would tell you exactly the same thing. And then, when you start making records, of course, I mean, look at the Simon and Garfunkel records and the Paul Simon records. Those are pristine. I mean, and the James Taylor records, he's very, very, very precise. These guys are like brain surgeons.
Hmm.
I'm not quite like that. I'm a little bit more loose and a little bit more rock and roll, if you will. Old fashioned. I like to hear a mistake here and there. I like to hear the guitar or whatever. But those guys are successful because their records are so, they're gorgeous.
Yeah, well, your stuff's right up there with them. Obviously, you are a legend, and thank you for spending 20 minutes of your time with us to talk about the release of your music. We really, really appreciate it, and I wish you well. And I
Well,
look
thank
forward
you.
to seeing you on the road again. Thank you very much, sir.
I'll be on the road again for sure. All right.
Alrighty. You hear him talk about, I've made millions and millions of dollars doing this, and this is a man who knows what he's done and is proud of it and owns it. And if I could be as confident as Don McLean, uh, that half as confident as Don McLean, I think I'll be okay. I love that because he's confident, but he's not cocky. He's not full of himself. He's kind of humble about, yeah, technology. I'm not the, I don't
Hmm.
quite understand it, but I understand its power. And he knows what he knows, and he's also aware of what he doesn't know. So it was a really down to earth conversation. I really enjoyed it.
That is awesome. And, it's always fun when we get to chat with a variety of stars, and to bring him in the mix for this is kind of a full circle moment, because, he's just America's songwriter. I mean, he's
Yeah.
written he's kind of like Bob Dylan. They just write
Hmm.
hits and hits. But one thing I'm really surprised about, I never expected a guitar lesson from him to go up
Yeah.
anywhere. But that you don't usually put those two together. At least I don't. I put the
No.
songwriting aspect to it. So that's really cool.
It was fun. It was fun, and he said he's only doing that once, but that's it. So it was fun, and I'm so glad we got to talk to him about some of this stuff. And he said he'll be back on the road as soon as he can. He says I'm gonna die on the road, and if that's what he wants, I hope we get back this country back to a place where he can do that.
Yeah, because I know next year is the 50th anniversary of the American Pie album and the world tour to follow. So that'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Wonderful. All right. Well, for the Music Universe podcast, I'm Matt.
And Buddy, thanks for listening, and keep checking themusicuniverse.com.